Hi, and welcome back. My name is Sandra Reish. I'm the clinical director of the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression, and I'm here with top psychotherapist Georgia Dow, talking about probably one of the most important topics that affects every single person on the planet: conflict and conflict resolution. Conflict is a part of our day-to-day lives, and yet most of us struggle. What do you do with it? How can it be helpful? Should it be avoided? We're going to tackle all that today, aren't we?
Yes, we are, and much more, because a lot of people will say, well, you know what? I don't even have conflicts. This never happens to me, or I avoid conflict.
Well, disclaimer right there. If you're one of those people who says, I don't need this, I don't have conflicts in my life, you may need this DVD even more so than people who do have conflicts. Why would I say such an outrageous statement? Because actually conflicts are a call for connection. And navigating a conflict effectively can significantly improve your relationship. Not having conflicts is not a sign of a good relationship. It's a sign of an unsafe relationship where you cannot express your emotions safely.
Beautifully said.
Let's review first. The sympathetic nervous system is adaptive. That's your fight or flight system. It's going to want to make you run away. So you're the person who wants to get away from the anxious situation, call in sick when you have that oral presentation, not show up somewhere, or you're going to want to have a fight with someone, because it's another way of diffusing anxiety.
Right.
Okay, fight,
attack the tiger.
Fight or flight. Okay, so number one, it's normal. Number two, it's time limited. We definitely want you to remember that, because if you learn nothing more than, stop the tape right now, which I hope you don't, okay, know that it cannot go on forever.
Right. And it's okay to have this. You're not in any danger. You don't have to worry. You're not having a heart attack. You're not dying from this. Your body is going through the normal processes, which having a panic attack physiologically is actually pretty good for you. It's healthy. It's like going on a really long race or going through a roller coaster ride, but it's not damaging your system.
You know, I love talking with you about it. I love that we're doing this, because it brings up so many things that, we bounce off of each other. It's just what Georgia just said reminded me of another thing that many of you may go through is you've had that anxiety attack and then you're so exhausted.
Yes,
you can't understand. We often call that at the clinic the panic attack hangover. Okay, because your body is preparing for danger and all the systems are on high alert, it's exhausting. And there we have another problem. Yes. Okay, so what happens is you have the anxiety, and like I said, it does not last forever, but because you're so exhausted after, if you don't take care of yourself, you're susceptible to another one. So you might be listening saying, no, I've had 5 today. You can have 5. They will be breaks between them. But it's time for some good news. There is an opposing nervous system in the body, and one thing I really think we have to make extremely clear is they cannot be on at the same time. So when psychology found this out, it was incredible great news for psychology, for cognitive behavioral therapy, and definitely for us. Because we can teach people how to turn on that other nervous system, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. So what is the parasympathetic nervous system, Georgia?
Well, the parasympathetic nervous system is your system saying, you know what? Everything's okay. Everything's calm. And then you end up getting your body being able to relax. I have survived the danger. Everything's okay. And during this time is when your body is going to go through its cool down, survival, and then also go through healing. And that's why we want to give you the tools, tips, and techniques.
And we will.
In order to activate the system faster and understand what's happening, so that if you ever have a panic attack, you ever have an anxiety experience, you can understand all of the stages and steps that you're going through it and know that that's normal.
Exercise is so important. Number one thing that people come back and say when they start, especially people who say, I'm not interested in medication, and we will talk about medication later in this series, but exercise has been shown in research after research to have a similar effect on the body as medication. Why? Because adrenaline is flowing through your body when you have anxiety. What gets released during exercise is adrenaline. Let me start with the idea that there is no book you get when you become a parent. And so we didn't know. We repeat what our parents did. Often we say we won't repeat what our parents do. We usually do, by the way. We'll talk about that. And actually there now is a lot of science on parenting and a lot of science that we didn't have before on what kids need. And there are patterns that show up in Georgia's office and my office time and time again as to where your kids can end up with an anxiety problem, this is anxiety videos. So this is always one of the key things that we're concerned about. But remember, anxiety is just a symptom. And all these things that we're going to teach you and strategies are relevant even if your kid does not have anxiety. Would you agree?
Yes, exactly. Parenting is one of the hardest things that you'll ever have to do. And it's something that we're going to repeat patterns that we were taught. And we're really lucky in that, one, both of us are parents, so we've used these techniques that we're going to be teaching you. And even though I'm a therapist and I went through all of the psychological training, there's still traps that I fell into. And so you can only parent as well as the tools that you know. So there's no such thing as bad parents. I hate that judgmental thought, and when parents come into my office, they often think that I'm here to judge them and I'm going to make them feel bad. And that isn't the way it is. It's just you use the tools that you know. And so what we're here to do is to teach you better techniques so that you can use them, and the techniques that work for you, wonderful. We're going to be going through a ton of different techniques to use. This is going to be a series, so this is session 1 in our parenting series. And the techniques that work for you, use them, and the ones that don't, will adapt so that you can feel happy and calm in your parenting skills.
But you are creating a mini society in your home, and I think that's where we're starting from, with rules. And of course, we're going to have a whole DVD on this, but boundaries and consequences, the boundaries being the rules, and the consequences being what happens if you break the rules. Now, again, not with rigidity, if it's 5 minutes late to bed, but I know in your house, I happen to know personally, I know you, like me, there are consequences for behavior, just like there's consequences at work, just like there's consequences if you speed. And your kids, and I believe my kids too, are pretty happy kids, but they know the rules.
Yes.
The rules are clear. So why, let's put it out there, do kids with rules seem happier, or do they seem more miserable? Because intuition would say they'd be more miserable. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, the answer.
Yes. I think that people, even the word, consequences, or even the worst word, punishments, has a little bit of a bad rap. That's the way that the world works. And children feel safer in a society that has certain rules to it. And so when we have rules for many different things, you make your own rules in your home to what sees fit. But my children are very happy that they know that, there is no yelling, and there's not going to be bullying of each other, and they're not going to be able to just break things and run around wild. I think that has created a very safe society. I think that we would feel very unsafe in the world if there was no speed limit, and people, if they assaulted you, nothing happened to them. So rules and boundaries are what make children feel safe and comfortable, but you also have to go through the time and effort that if you make a rule, you are going to have to enforce that rule. And I think that that's one of the biggest parenting mistakes, is that you create a rule and a boundary and a consequence, but then you enforce it because you're tired maybe 60 or 70 or 80%, which is not enough.
There's really nothing more important in terms of living your best life than something called emotional intelligence. So we wanted to tackle that topic today. Georgia, why is emotional intelligence so important?
Emotional intelligence is kind of like the sails to your ship. It's telling you where you want to go in your life. And if you're not cued into that, you can really end up feeling lost.
Emotional intelligence affects every aspect of your life, from your love life to your business life, how much money you have in the bank, how you get along with your colleagues, how you get along with your children. It affects it all.
Yeah, and we're going to be going through not only what is emotional intelligence, but how do you get that if you're struggling, if you're not cued in? Because I have a lot of people come in and they say to me, I don't even know how I'm feeling right now. How do I get this?
It's an important point, and I think that one that many of us didn't grow up learning. A lot of us learned a lot about something called IQ. Do well in school, get good marks, learn your stuff. And ironically, IQ is not correlated with success as highly as emotional intelligence is. Don't be alarmed by feelings of relaxation. Again, tingling, throbbing, warmth, or heaviness are typical relaxation response. They are not a sign of an anxiety attack. They're a sign of relaxation, and sometimes that can be confusing because anxiety people tend to be very vigilant of their bodies. And so when they feel anything different, that could be a trigger for anxiety right there.
Yes.
So it's important to know the difference between a relaxation response and a tension one, and I guess that's why I do like the active relaxation, because there's a big difference.
And if you're anxious for a large part of the day, your body may not be used to it. You haven't been practicing being relaxed, so if this is very difficult for you, this is probably the reason why you should make sure to keep on working on doing your active relaxation.
I also believe that a relationship that can't survive a conflict is not a relationship. We should be able to have a disagreement, but not in a disrespectful way. Similar
Yes.
to you, I think. Now, some of you listening, your partner at that time, or friend or family member, might outright dismiss you and say, too bad, I'm not doing that for you. And you may say, oh my God, what do I do now? I had the DVD, but you didn't give the answer. We're going to give you the answer. The answer is walk from the negotiation table, let the person sit with it, because my answer there would be, then we have a problem. So if I say to Georgia, Georgia, I need you to respect this rule, and she goes, well, I'm not going to respect it. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do about it. It's a ridiculous rule. I can't help you. Like we started off earlier, then I'm going to have to say, well, that's a problem for me. So please go think about it, and maybe we can talk about this when you're ready. And I probably would let her sit with that. She might even say, when I say, let's talk about it when you're ready, she might say, I'll never be ready. And even then, you haven't lost yet. People say things in a moment of anger, and people don't always want to change. But if you take yourself seriously, you said people treat you the way you teach them to treat you. If you take yourself seriously, you will succeed at boundaries and consequences. That is a very important point, I think. Your lovability factor is not determined by your external accomplishments.
Oh, I love that. Can you say that again? I love
Your
that.
lovability factor is not determined by your external accomplishments. You were born lovable, you were lovable, you are lovable, and you will be lovable.
Even me.
Even you, Georgia. Okay? So if you do great accomplishments, good for you, but you didn't become more lovable.
Yeah.
Sorry. And if you became really rich and everybody in the world is clapping for you, that's great, but you didn't become more lovable. So if it's a constant, that means you're lovable right now.
Yes. And when do you most need to be loved? When you're doing great things, when you're climbing mountains, accomplishing things, that's not actually when it matters most to be cared for. It's when you're down, when it really matters, when you feel upset. That's when you need to be a real good coach to yourself, to pick yourself up, to make yourself feel better. You don't need it when you're winning off that marathon for someone to say, good job, you're doing great. You already know that. So that's the most important time to make sure you're giving yourself good self-care.
Okay, so sleep hygiene. What a strange term. When I first learned it, I thought, sleep hygiene? What on earth does that mean? Sleep hygiene are habits that you do to get a good night's sleep, and we have a long list to get through today of things that you can do to balance the scale towards having really good sleep. We already talked about the what-if strategy. And we've already mentioned, I mentioned it en passant, to have a journal next to your bed. I use this a lot myself because I have very creative thoughts when I go to sleep. Of all the times, I suddenly start getting business ideas and creative ideas in my life. And then I'm worried I'm going to forget them, so I keep playing them over and over again in my brain. So I have a little journal next to my bed, and I can just go write down, so in the morning I have them to look at, but I don't want to deal with them now. Even a worry thought, I will write down in that journal, and that is a good idea for you guys too. Get a journal, put it next to your bed.
I love that. And let's go through the cycling thoughts that people kind of go through. So the reasons that you get cycling thoughts even during the daytime, but more so at night, is exactly as Sandra said. You might be worried that you're going to forget something. You might be trying to problem solve because they will be a difficult situation. And that's the beautiful way to do it. You can take your journal, you write it down in the bed, say, you know, this is what I'm worried about and this is my strategy to solve it. So you don't have to keep on running it back through your mind. You already have your issue and its solution, and also you don't have to worry that you're going to do something wrong because you've figured out a good solution that you feel comfortable with. But I also like to say, sleep is the time for, you have one job when you're going to sleep. That is to sleep, not to solve the problems of the world. You can do that during the daytime. It's important. You need to give it its importance. And so when I go to sleep, the first thing that I try to do is not think about things that are going to stress me, but I give myself distraction techniques. I think about things that are mildly interesting, or I do math in the middle of my head. So I am entertaining my brain, my limbic system, the worry center, and my analytical part of my brain is going for a subject that does not cause me stress. And after the while that I deal with, 372 minus 7, minus 7, minus, after a while I just have fallen asleep because I have not activated my anxiety center. You activate your anxiety center, you say danger. If you think something that's worrisome or dangerous, your body is going to become woken up, so you're prepared for action, not calm and prepared for sleep.